and welcome to the next video for repair of my Jobo CPE2 Plus. As you probably remember from the previous videos, I have a problem with the motor, so today we will again disassemble the tool and check what we can do with the motor and why it doesn't really work anymore. And for first test, I just need to disassemble the heating element because I have no water inside the tool. So I just cut off power from the regulator and cut off power from the circuit which is controlling the heater. And as you can probably see, the motor kind of works, and at some point it's basically stuck and steals, and the thing is, it's actually overheating the motor itself. After it, I just check electronics and I see 12 volts which is sweeping back and forward and changing directions of the motor. To remove the control module from this system, you just need to unscrew one bolt on one side, and the rest of the connection points, it's actually automotive plastic clips. This is quite old tool, and I really hope the new one doesn't really make with the same fashion. So first of all, the PCB inside this tool is crazy big and you can scale it down maybe twice or 3 times. Secondly, if you can understand, the motor itself doesn't really fit in a shell, and it's actually a little bit polished on one side to get it fit in a box. And now when I disassemble everything, you can clearly say this is basically just a vacuum formed death and just a one control module with a one PCB and really old and really bad motor from the Bosch. Because it's brush motor with the gears, actually downside of this motor is overheating if you apply too much load, and basically if you not fix it right away and you just will wait until it's completely stopped, like in my case, you will basically burn the motor to the death. After fighting with the disassembly, I actually pull off everything from the box, and I have a control box completely separated from the BEV, and you can exchange all the parts and you can repair everything. And now I understand, if you need to remove the motor, you have 2 alien screws from the bottom side of the controlling tool, so you can just unscrew it from below and remove the motor. But first you need to remove the shaft, and this shaft is actually setting up only with the one tap screw and not with the gasket. So you just need to unscrew it once and remove the shaft, and if you have a removed PCB, you can easily remove the motor from the place. I want to test motor separate, so the idea of this shaft is actually to hold the main driving shaft with the magnet. And this is a Bosch motor. If somebody interesting, this is a number and the naming of this motor. Unfortunately, you cannot buy this anymore, but I think it's quite easy to replace with a stepper motor or modern versions of this motor. And also, this motor doesn't really fit inside the controlling box. I looked for the manual for this motor, but unfortunately I cannot find anything, any type of service manual. It's only size, fitting holes, torque, and different types of how many voltage you need to apply, and you can reverse it and so on and so forth. But this front hole with the cap actually looks a little bit oily, and I tried to unscrew it for the first time, and actually it's really tight. And as you probably understand, this sound of unscrewing the oil cap doesn't sound really great. I'm not sure why it's there, but it was covered and probably somebody tried to oil it, or it was not oiled from the factory. I'm not sure, so I just will apply a little bit of oil inside the gears and some oil on the shaft bearings to just make everything works a little bit better. Unfortunately, this motor not really repairable, it's not really requires any maintenance, so it's just replaceable once per life cycle of this motor. And now looking on all of these constructions, I can actually say if you're paying more than 1,000 euro for this type of system, it's just much cheaper to make it yourself if you have skills. Because all of the electronics what you see here in this box costs around maybe 50 euros with assembly, and the motor itself also costs maybe like 15 to 20 euros, so the all electronics and the heating element and everything with the mixing probably will cost around 200 euros max. I even not describing it will be much better because it will be modern and the brushless motor, and it will be completely quiet and temperature stable. But also it's a 1 unit price and it's not production price value. And additionally, you can order or 3D print or just order the box for controlling unit and even make it from aluminum. It's not so expensive in the modern world. I think it's just a problem of the market. It's not a lot of people actually need and require this type of systems. The positive side of Jobo system is actually the drums. I really like the system, really like the idea how the plastic looks like and works. And for this Jobo system I just want to make it more user-friendly, more modern and controllable with a precise temperature. And now when I realized I don't need to remove the motor actually from the controlling box because it doesn't make any sense, and all the access to the motor we have from the front side and even the hole for the oil. So I'll just carefully assemble it back and try to not forget any connections and put back everything really carefully. What I for sure can say, this device requires a little bit of engineering, and because the PCB board itself touched the motor and doesn't really have any type of connections and any type of bracket for the thermal switch, doesn't have really sturdy connections for the controlling switches. I don't really like the design, and it's actually not connected to the front side, it's actually connected to the core and the bottom side, which doesn't have any logic behind it. But anyway, so let's assemble it back and put the heater inside and try to fix the motor and just check if it works, if heating works, if I connect everything right correctly and assemble it back. And from there, let's make a decision what we will do next, if motor also still doesn't really work. From previous videos you probably already know this is just a one heater element with the thermal switch connected directly to the heater, and it cycles the temperature. So what I did, I make a modification with the temperature control, and now you can control the temperature directly inside the bottle. And in this video I also will make additional modification for this system and make it more or less perfect. And because I'm a little bit forget the assembly order, I just forget to put the shaft to the motor, and now I'm just want to test it and see if the motor works at all. And a lot of parts inside this tool actually looks like car components, and it's not really like microelectronics or even just electronics. And sometimes you need to apply a little bit of force to remove the connectors and try to not rip off the PCB from there. So if you will try to do the same, be more or less careful and try to not rip off the connectors, or at least know how to repair everything inside this tool. And for some of the connectors you sometimes need to use special tools or pliers to just remove the connector and put it back, because you have not enough space. So be patient, and if something is actually not going inside, do not force it, and sometimes you just need to take a break. I for sure spent more than half a day for this assembly, so now it looks more or less correct, and I just want to check if I have everything connected right and the heater works and the motor also works. Only one crucial thing what I forget is actually put the shaft back, and as you can see here you need to remove the main PCB which is already attached and put the shaft back and just apply the nut which is locking the shaft. I also will attach the shaft a little bit loose, so I will just point the nuts and just screw it down, but have a little bit of play inside the axis. In this case it's much easier to attach the drum to not fully rigid surface, so it basically will move a little bit back and forward. And additionally it's removing the stress, so from this side if you want to repair the motor or remove the motor, you just need to unscrew the PCB, unscrew the nut, remove the shaft, and after you removing the shaft you can unscrew the motor from the bottom side with the two Allen keys. So I disassemble it completely, and it's not really necessary, so if you want to repair it, just know you don't need to remove everything, you just need to remove the PCB and you can easily access the full motor, and in principle it also doesn't really make sense if you don't have a replacement. So I think the main problem it's just a long storage of this motor. And secondly, I think they just forget when you assemble it, just forget to put a little bit of oil inside the gearbox of this motor, because what I can see on the plastic cap you have a hole which is actually drilled for some reason inside this cap, but behind this plastic cap you actually have a screw which is holding the oil inside the gearbox. And if your gearbox is stuck, your motor is actually overheating, and over time it's just burned down the core of the motor. As a final step, let's attach with the Allen key the magnet on top of the shaft and check if whole assembly works. For this, I just will attach the 12 volts power supply on the motor and try to move it back and forward. And as you can see, it actually stops. You can hear the sound of the motor applying some torque. And the gearbox creates a little bit noisy and strange sound and doesn't really move. And if you apply a little bit of pressure on top of the gear shaft, it's actually start to move. What I try to do next, because this screw which is holding the oil, I think, from the factory when I opened the tool was completely tied down to the end, I just try to unscrew it, and for some reason actually motor start to work better. As you can see here, if I completely tied it down, the filling nut is probably touching some parts inside the gearbox. So it's create additional tension on all motor parts and the motor doesn't work anymore. So I just unscrew it in the middle position, put the cup back and try to assemble all the electronic parts and tie down the PCB back. And now when everything is ready, I just want to assemble the core back, put the water inside the bath and check if the heating works and if the motor works in the same time. Because I disconnect the temperature regulator, I still have exactly the same components inside the controlling box, so I have a few additional cables and sometimes I just need to wiggle the box a little bit to fit it back. And when everything is aligned correctly, you can screw down the main box and the tool is actually ready to use. So let's put the controlling knobs back and turn on the power on the tool and check if everything works fine. I will put a little bit of water to just cover up the heating element, put the temperature probe close to the heating element and just turn it on and try to see if the motor actually rotates or it's exactly the same problem. On the first glance, it actually looks exactly the same, but when you put your drum inside, you can clearly see it's rotated much faster and everything works much quieter. And as you probably understand, I will test it a little bit more before I start the development of the film, because film is quite critical. So for now, I will just fill it up with water and check if my rotation and temperature works and everything is stable. And meanwhile, I will mention for this too. Because as you probably know, you have around 8 liters of water and it's not mixed at all in this system. And the simplest upgrade for this type of system is actually adding the mixing setup for the bath. My requirement for this mixing bath, it should be quiet, it doesn't really need to create any type of noise. And for exact this purpose, I just bought the aquarium water circulator, which costs around 10 euros. And you can plug it directly to 220 volts, so it's basically can be the same assembly of power line from the tool or from the controlling box. You can change the pressure and it's a brushless motor, so it means it's completely quiet. I will put it on the right side and create a jet basically of water which is going on the heating element and around the bottles and a little bit on top to mix it up around the drum. And so far, as you can see, it's completely quiet. Everything works perfectly fine. You can see the circle of water inside the bath and it's not really crazy. So it's more or less controllable, but in the same time, you have no temperature deviation more than 0.5 degrees across the whole bath. So you can easily conclude I have an update for this Jobo CPE2 system around 25 euros. Which solve most of the problem with the system itself. And because today I want to develop the 4 rolls of film, I just want to test if I have 38 degrees inside the bath and if I can control directly temperature inside the bottle. So at the moment I heated up everything to 38 degrees inside the bath and I just want to control the temperature inside the bottles and control the precision and the temperature inside the whole bath. And for C41 chemistry, the deviation temperature inside the bath should be not more than 0.5 degrees. If it's more precise, it's better, but do not overcomplicate stuff, at least more than it's written in manual, because you will never see the difference by eye inside your development. And this only one feature which I really like about this setup, I just put the temperature control inside the bottle and I will have a solution which is 38 degrees. So let's start with the development, and now for the first time I will try to develop 4 rolls of 35mm film. This is the same half-liter solution, and today I will just continue and basically stretch it up and make 8 developments for the half of the liter of my semi-fresh solution. And as you probably understand, in this case, if I want to develop 5 films or 4 films of 35mm film, I just cannot use the half-liter solution. As I remember, for this type of drum and this type of setup, I need a 480 milliliters of a fresh solution, and I can only use it in a rotation mode. So if I will use it with the inversion mode, I cannot stand the whole setup, so I just need a 1 liter or even more of the solution. And the problem with the whole setup like this, I will prepare half and basically develop only 8 rolls of film, which is more or less manageable, and your solution will be quite fresh in the end of your life cycle of 8 rolls on the same half a liter. What I done previously, I just prepare 1 liter of the solution, and it actually can be even half a year when I just develop 16 rolls of film. And in the end of the development, its solution is not really fresh, you have a lot of oxidation of silver inside, your bleach fix doesn't really work the same fashion in moody colors, and it not really works. So for today I will try to make this stretch a little bit more, and in principle, as I understand, you can develop 8 to 10 low speed film, because this is codec 200 film. I can probably go with the 10 different films, so basically 2 runs with the 5 rolls of film in a drum. And this is my more or less finalized type of solution. So I put the thermocouple inside the first development bath, waiting until it stabilizes on 38 degrees. I have really powerful water jet, which is actually mixing all the water inside the bath, and I don't really have any problems with the uneven temperature inside the water bath anymore. So I will preheat the drum, and so far I need to adjust the timer, and inside the manual you can find the different times for different numbers of roll for half a liter of the solution. So chemically it's kind of looks like you push the film a little bit, so it's 4 minutes of development and almost 15 minutes of the bleach fix. I'm not sure if it's necessary, but as you probably know, the bleach fix, it's actually a process which goes to the end. If you over bleach, over fix, it's not really over bleaching and over fixing. Probably if you just leave it there for like hours, it will create a problem with the emulsion, but before that point everything works fine. And also small note, never use the amount of solution more than required. So for example, this is a stop bath, and usually it creates a lot of vapor, and as you can see in my case, you hear the click, and this is basically safety cup clicking back. And the next problem, I just lose the cup totally. But because I have only half a liter of the solution inside the drum, nothing actually happened, because the solution level is lower than the central core of my development drum. So be careful, because sometimes people don't really use the stop bath and just directly pour bleach fix. And if bleach fix actually shoot out your cup and you have too much solution, you can create a lot of mess in your lab. So this was quite a journey, but so far I really like the setup what I actually acquired. It's really precise, and we will see it in the next videos with the prints what I will make from this trip. It actually takes a lot of time to make this type of videos and this type of upgrades, but I think it's just necessary, because it's absolutely zero information about this type of tools and this type of upgrades, what inside this tool, how it actually works, how you can repair it, and if it's at all repairable in future if you just buy it on eBay. Probably this type of video is a little bit overcomplicated and long, and even probably it's a little bit too technical for the average viewer. But if you like this type of videos, just support my channel, subscribe, give a like, give a comment. I read all the comments and try to answer all of your questions. In the next videos I will go back to the printing, and mostly I will just try to print C41 from exactly these 5 rolls of film. And I want to check the quality of my development, especially for this type of rolls, because I already saw the scans from this film and it actually looks quite amazing. I never had such a vibrant colors, such a good density. And you need to keep it in mind, it's actually 8 rolls for half a liter, so it's a 16 rolls per 1 liter of ethanol solution, which is a little bit stretching of this kind of chemicals. So I think that's it for today. Subscribe also to my Instagram if you want to see pictures from these rolls. Thank you for watching and see you in the next videos.